Man, Cody Rhodes was one of the best babyfaces in wrestling, until he wasn't. Yeah, the story of Cody Rhodes in AEW is a fascinating one, given that during the company's first year on television, Cody was one of the very best, churning out great segment after great segment. The contract signing with Chris Jericho, the ungoddamn deniable promo, the 10 lashes, the moonsault off the cage, the man was on fire. Well, no, actually, that part came later, but you get the point. But over time, Cody Rhodes grew less bearable to a large amount of the AEW audience, whether it be because of a distaste for reality TV shows, or maybe they didn't like the Cody solved racism promo. Bottom line, people didn't like Cody no more. Thus, the last year of Cody in AEW produced a large number of dud segments, which for the sake of parity with our last list, we must list here. Not all the moments come from Cody's last 12 months, but rest assured, these are all moments to erase from your memory as Cody makes his climb back to the 5th dimension. I'm Tempest, hailing from partsFUNknown, and these are the 10 worst Cody Rhodes moments in AEW. You know what your worst moment in AEW is? Not subscribing to partsFUNknown. You don't want to have a worst moment, you want to have a best moment. So give us the old 3-click combo and make yourself a subscriber to partsFUNknown. There you go, you have no more worst moments, have a blessed day. Number 10, Cody gets booed at Revolution 2021. Boy, have there been some weird reactions to these spots over the years. You know the one, a big star hurts his knee or something and gets carried away only to come hobbling back out 10 minutes later. People cheered The Miz when he did it at Money in the Bank 2011. Interesting. But they sure didn't cheer Cody at Revolution 2021. Oh man, this guy eats an appropriate amount of shit, entering the match with a hurt shoulder and taking a Canadian destroyer on a ladder. Ouch. But when he comes back out, the boos are raining down upon him. It's one of the first big anti-Cody responses that I can remember, and it just kind of goes to show that fans weren't going to welcome him in that kind of heroic underdog role. Doesn't kill the match by any means, but this certainly wasn't the reaction he wanted. Number 9, don't scare dogs. Talk about a thing that feels like it was a million years ago. Will my mind ever properly process time before 2020 again? Who knows? But unfortunately, this was not long enough ago for me to have forgotten this incredibly unfortunate moment from AEW's infant days. Back in 2019, Cody's Siberian Husky and all-around good boy Pharaoh was as much a part of his presentation as anything else. I love dogs. Dogs are great, which makes Cody's entrance at All Out 2019 for his match against Shawn Spears difficult to watch. Cody and company walk through the tunnel as fireworks go off, pyro and ballyhoo, which is not good when there is a poor confused pepperoni present. Sure enough, Pharaoh is having none of it, resulting in a good deal of criticism for AEW and, well, yeah, don't scare dogs. The Rhodeses seem like wonderful pet parents though. I just love dogs. Number 8, Cody Rhodes versus Malakai Black 2. Cody Rhodes' first match with Malakai Black was very effective and engaging. Malakai kills him in 5 minutes, 1, 2, 3, simple and effective. The rematch, however, a bit less simple. We get the return of Brandy Rhodes, who delivers a wonderful new gif for everyone to save and react to things with on Twitter. But Arn Anderson also falls off the apron while setting up his spot, and the match just feels considerably more complicated than it needed to be. The action is good as always, but the follow-up to such a unique and decisive first match was likely going to struggle to capture that same magic, but Codyverse matches did often use a lot more smoke and mirrors than other matches on the AEW card. Number 7, Cody Rhodes on the waiting room. There were a lot of awkward pandemic-era wrestling segments, but for Cody Rhodes, this one might top the awkward pile. Cody is a guest on Britt Baker's The Waiting Room to discuss his new baby and the Go Big Show, which has always sounded like someone sending out a Pokemon called Big Show, but anyway, Britt says Cody's baby will get an action figure before she will, and the only thing Cody can do is put on a nervous smile. Jade interrupts, saying she'll beat Brandy's ass when she returns, another potential feud lost to the universe. Jade and Red Velvet brawl. Britt finds out she's wrestling Thunder Rosa, and meanwhile Cody is awkwardly nodding and saying, okay. The whole thing feels incredibly rushed and unfocused, and aside from a brief interaction with Jade, Cody didn't even need to be there. This quickly becomes not a Cody moment, but he was the top star of the segment and he didn't exactly do much to save it. This is more an example of AEW throwing an excessive amount of information into one segment, but that is a topic for another day. Number 6, the Cody Rhodes QT Marshall rivalry. If Cody's goodwill with the fans was teetering on the edge at Revolution, this rivalry with QT Marshall shoved it right off. QT Marshall turned heel on Dustin Rhodes at Revolution in the Tag Battle Royal and demanded a match with Cody shortly thereafter. This rivalry just went on forever. It went on for 3 pissing months. QT Marshall is a talented man, but he was the heel that had to wrestle Cody while the fans were turning on him, and it's not like they were gonna cheer QT Marshall. Cody beat QT at Blood and Guts, and it still dragged out until AEW's return to the road at Road Rager. And what kept us entertained during those 3 months? Well, all the Anthony Ogogo stuff is what, and that deserves its own entry, or in this case, several. Number 5, Cody Rhodes versus Anthony Ogogo, Double or Nothing 2021. Cody Rhodes and Anthony Ogogo had an uphill battle when they were slated to wrestle at Double or Nothing 2021. Their match was one of the least anticipated on the card, the fans weren't into Cody, and Ogogo could count the amount of matches he had had on one hand. Considering all that, they did pretty well, making it through the entire match without any noticeable screw-ups, but the match still just didn't quite click. It wasn't what the fans were excited to see, and on top of that, Cody won with his backup finisher, the Vertebreaker, or if you watch New Japan Pro Wrestling and play massive amounts of Zelda, you'll know Cody's Vertebreaker is named Din's Fire, because despite the suits, Cody is still a big ol' nerd just like the rest of us. Still, the match is dull, the worst on an otherwise stacked pay-per-view. Number 4, that Dan Lambert segment. Throughout 2021, this backlash against Cody Rhodes grew, and then this segment took place on the December 17th episode of Rampage as Cody Rhodes was forced into a segment with Dan Lambert. Lambert cuts his usual anti-Tony Khan promo when Cody interrupts him, and at this point in time, the fans became stuck between a Cody Rhodes and a hard place, wanting to cheer for neither man. Sometimes double heel rivalries can be fun, like with the Wyatt family and the Shield, where you just cheer for whichever side you prefer, but that just wasn't happening here. I want you to think of like magnets and trying to push the negative ends of two magnets together, forcibly refusing to cooperate. The fans just weren't gonna cheer for Cody, and having him play hero and try and shut up Dan Lambert just made for a train wreck segment. Not to mention the weirdness of Cody and Lambert stealing the mic from each other a dozen times before the fighting broke out. The fans just weren't having it anymore, and this is a segment where you just wait for it to be over. Number 3, Teases left unanswered. Say what you will, Cody is a businessman allowed to make a business decision and take himself wherever best suits him. Those who get angry saying otherwise on Twitter probably shouldn't be allowed to operate heavy machinery, but I digress. One major bummer about Cody leaving AEW is the sheer amount of seeds that have been planted for future storylines that will now need to be dug up and removed from the AEW garden. Cody and Sting will now not get to cross paths after Mr. Stink took an interest in Darby, and Cody will now never get to work his way back around to having a rematch with MJF, something Cody teased being a goal of his after Full Gear 2020. You can't have everything, and that's fine, but it is a shame that these potentially great storylines will have to be shelved forever. Or, until Cody comes back to AEW, because time is a flat circle. Number 2, the Anthony Ogogo weigh-in. Boy, you want to talk about train wreck segments. This was such a train wreck that there's like a whole episode of Roads to the Top talking about how it's a train wreck. It's just, why did wrestling get in its own head that weigh-ins and contract signings are what fans love? These segments are fine if they're used for the narrative purpose of just getting two characters together so they can speak. Cool, they're not that offensive. But when you get a weigh-in like this, where the scale isn't cooperating, Tall Paul is your mediator, and all of this is just going on forever while unrelated fireworks start going off adjacent to the building, this is what I imagine a nightmare feels like. There's chaotic energy with nothing going right. It's just a bad wrestling segment. This is a reminder that Dynamite does, on occasion, have some absolute gong show bottom of the barrel moments. Just like number 1, Cody solves racism. I mean, it had to be this, did it not? Poor Cody. I can't imagine anything he said during this now infamous promo had any malice behind it, but man, does that not make it any less bizarre. Cody himself has expressed his regrets about this promo and the whole Anthony Ogogo feud in general, so it's good to know that his head is screwed on right, but as it was happening, Cody's pro-America promo in the middle of some very depressing American times just didn't feel helpful in regards to any meaningful conversation about change and real positives. Instead, it was a wrestling promo about a foreign heel and Cody wanting to call himself the American Dream. In May 2021, when America was still feeling a great deal of tension politically and racially, the optics of this promo were never going to be good, and this was a very poor time to choose to do it. Regardless of your personal views, many people will point to this moment as where it really went off the rails for Cody in AEW, which I don't understand because he clearly solved racism with this promo. What an incredible act. And that's our list. If there are any terrible Cody Rhodes moments we missed, make sure to let us know in the comments, and share this video around with your friends if you enjoyed it. We appreciate it more than you know. Until then, give us a like and a subscribe, ring that bell to stay notified, and until then, be wonderful and turn off the tap when you're brushing your teeth. Okay, bye-bye.